Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Teeth Matter. I'm your host, Ellie Halabian, DDS, and in this week's episode, I have the great pleasure of chatting with my friend Hamza Gaj. Hamza is a graduate from Midwestern University in 2018, and since then has worked in different dental environments. But more importantly, I got to know him through social media, and he has a great online presence. And you can see that he's a very authentic, very open, original person. And through that, he shows a bit of vulnerability, which I admire and appreciate. So without further ado, I present to you my conversation with Hamza Gaj. Hello, everyone, and this is another episode of Teeth Matter. I'm your host, Ellie Halabian, DDS, and today we've got Hamza with us. Hamza, did I say that correctly? Did I pronounce that?
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, you did.
Okay. I just want to be sure. Everyone messes up my name, so I just go by
Yeah,
Ellie
yeah.
now. So we have Hamza here with us today. Hamza and I have been Instagram friends for more than a year now.
Yeah.
And I've been watching you and I've watched your profile, and it's just, you are a very open and very expressive person. And it's really beautiful to watch because I feel like you have this connection with your audience. And as you go through your Instagram profile, like, it's very clear that, you know, you're a dentist who entered this like content world at a really early stage of social media, I would say. Not only that, but like, I think being a FIGS ambassador kind of, you know, propelled you and pushed you in that direction. And obviously, like, FIGS is a very popular brand. They're big in the healthcare space because, you know, they help, you know, providers find confidence in the workplace, you know, by feeling good and doing good. What does it mean to be a FIG ambassador, and how did that partnership begin?
Um, that's a good question. Well, thanks for having me on. First of all, I appreciate you, and I appreciate this friendship that developed very spontaneously, but yeah, it's beautiful. But yeah, my relationship with Figs was kind of just serendipitous in that, like, I came across their ad while I was in dental school. This is like probably my junior year or third year of dental school. And you know how they were just like starting off, they just had these Instagram ads. And I've always loved fashion. I've always loved dressing well. I've always loved wearing clothes that fit well. And the one problem I had with the scrubs is that they just never fit well. They were always baggy. I looked like I was wearing pajamas. I'm super skinny, so I just don't fit well in regular scrubs. I was like swimming in them. So I was like, all right, I'll try these out because they actually look pretty good. And I ordered a pair and I loved them. And it was funny because at the time they only had a limited selection of colors, and it wasn't the blue that matched my dental school blue. So I kind of stuck out from everyone. Like, I was just a complete different shade of blue from everyone else, but I didn't care because I just loved how they fit. And we took a class photo at one point. I took a photo with one of my dental professors, and I tagged them in it. And then I remember Mary and I had a conversation. This is one of the FIGS people that worked there, and she talked about ambassadorship and what it entailed and everything, and basically invited me to be an ambassador. And at the time, I didn't really understand what that was. That was like a whole new kind of concept to me. I was never an influencer. I never thought about getting into that realm. I was more so just happy that they were offering free scrubs because I could barely afford one pair. So I was like, yeah, I'm down for that. So long story short, I just kind of got into this partnership with them, and it just over time just developed more into like it turned from a partnership into like a family and friendship type thing where they would invite me, you know, to do shoots and then I to these events, and I just got to meet such a beautiful crowd of people. And now I'd say like a majority of my friends are FIGS ambassadors, and they've created such a beautiful network of people that have not only like changed my life in the last 2 to 3 years, but like also like helped me in my career in all these different ways. And, you know, as a result of being a FIGS ambassador, you kind of get thrust into this like influencer type of thing. And I would definitely not say I'm even anywhere close to that, but it's given me a lot of opportunities in that realm, which I'm really thankful for. But I've always tried to be as responsible as possible with that kind of title, and like always promoting like positivity and being kind, and even in dentistry, just trying to like focus on mental health and taking care of yourself, because I I have been down the path of like negativity and like the negative comments and all that stuff, and I realized like there's a point when you reach social media where you can choose one of two paths, and it can either have a really positive effect on you or a negative effect. And yeah, I just started to notice when I was posting negative stuff or saying negative stuff, it was a result of like something internal. Uh, and I just try to cut back on that and be more positive in every regard that I can. And as a result, I've developed a really good community of people such as yourself from it. And it's really been great in that regard. So yeah, long story short, I've been with Figs now since 2016, uh, and it's been great. Like I've had a lot of amazing opportunities to do fun stuff with them, and they are really a beautiful company with a lot of great respect for the healthcare community. And there's not many companies I would stand behind as firmly as I do. Like I don't really do a lot of sponsorships and partnerships with things I don't believe in, and Figs is one company I can like firmly stand behind. No matter what, because they've actually like they put their money where their mouth is when they talk about supporting the healthcare community, especially with COVID. That was a big time when it was tested, and they really came through for us. So yeah.
Yeah, no, Figs is a big brand, and obviously to be a part of such a, you know, well recognized community, it must mean a lot. And also you're accountable, for um, I mean, a lot of people hold you accountable. You represent an image and a certain vision. And I remember when I saw Figs, I was, I thought, oh wow, it must be so cool to be a Figs ambassador. I looked up to Figs ambassadors. I felt like if I were to be one, I mean that means I achieved something, or I've made a social impact, or made some kind of I've made some kind of change in this world. I felt like all these ambassadors have that sort of impact on others. But like you said, this content creation, this being a Figs ambassador, is very rewarding, but also very challenging. Could you share an example where you were involved in a particular project or posted some content or some journey that you realized, wow, you know, you have a lot of power over people, or there's a lot of power on your over your work?
Um, yeah, I think it's like shortly after COVID, I went through a lot of like personal mental health crises moments, and I was just in a really place. And I think instead of posting all the positive aspects of my life and like all the great stuff, I kind of got to a point where I was like, hey, like I'm not in a good place right now. Like, just I kind of opened up and I was a bit more vulnerable on social media, which is not something I ever thought I would do. And I don't know what really instilled me to do it, but it was more so just like I don't know if you can cuss, but I just said F it. Like I'm just gonna like put myself out there and just kind of as like a therapeutic mechanism, just like let it out. And I wasn't doing it to get sympathy or anything. It was more so just like, hey, like social media has a lot of bullshit on here, and you know, some of us aren't doing okay, and like some of us are going through stuff. And I remember the feedback I got on it was like almost overwhelming. Like I did not realize that many people like either looked at my stuff or followed me or cared about that stuff. And yeah, I think it just kind of taught me to just from there on out just be more open and honest. And uh, I've never felt shy about just sharing like what's going on, whether it's good or bad, because I think for the most part, like social media does sometimes just portray the goodness in everything, especially as dentists. I think unfortunately in our field, um, we tend to neglect sharing the downsides of it. And there are a lot of downsides, unfortunately, especially as dentistry is evolving. And I think it's good to like share it sometimes just to give dental students and pre-dental students a fair perspective about this profession and to know what they're getting into, because that can significantly affect your mental health when you go into a profession expecting it to be like up here and then you're still like not even low, you're like just in the middle. And I think that what causes a lot of depression and a lot of, mental health issues in our profession is like our expectations are completely out of whack based on what we thought it was going to be. And so I'm trying to like kind of reset that as best as I can because it is a great profession. I am thankful for what I do. I think there's so many beautiful aspects of it, but I think it is our responsibility as professionals to also be honest about our failures and share them when possible, because it just brings light to like not only like the fact that we're humans and we make mistakes and like sometimes things don't go as planned, but also that dentistry is not like a perfect profession and that there's just as many flaws to it as there are any other profession you get into. Um, and it just lets, I guess, future students or dental students kind of be more responsible about their choices.
Absolutely. No, I definitely hear you. I'm in the same boat myself, and that's why this podcast came to be. It's because I felt frustrated and I felt like no one is sharing their obstacles or their hurdles or their, failures, and all I see
Yeah.
is all the good on Instagram. And so how could it be? I mean, I'm no different from anyone else. Like, well, I also graduated from dental school just like the rest of them. So
Yeah.
why is there such a huge discrepancy or,
Yeah.
and then and then the funny thing is, we as dentists don't talk about it. We don't share anything. But also, our patients have a very different view about the life of a dentist. They think that,
Yeah.
we are making money, that we have an easy life, we have a good work-life balance, and they don't really necessarily understand like the mental health and the physical pressures that are on us.
Yeah.
So if you're sharing all of this on Instagram, and I mean your patients have access to social media as well, does that do you take into consideration what your patients see on Instagram? Does that affect your
Uh,
dental-patient
no,
relationship?
no, that's actually like a conversation I was having with a friend recently is they asked like, why don't I have like a dental professional account and a personal account? And the reason I chose not to do that was, well, one is laziness. I just didn't want to go through the whole process of doing that again. But also I feel like your personality should be just as important as your profession in terms of dentistry, especially like when a patient comes to see me, I want them to kind of come to see me for who I am and not just because I'm a great dentist or whatever. Like, I think the way to make a patient more comfortable being around you is by knowing you more, knowing what movies you're into, what songs you're into, like what you do on the weekends, like the fact that you're a human being that has like feelings and emotions. And I think that's great because like I want my patients to see my Instagram because
Mm-hmm.
then maybe they can come in one day and be like, yo, did you go see that movie this weekend? Like, what'd you think of it? And like, then they just stop even thinking about their root canal they're about to get because we're talking about Barbie and like the significant cultural impact it's had on us and like things like that. So for me, like my personality is just as important a skill in dentistry as anything else. Like I would rather have a great personality that connects with my patients rather than like amazing hand skills because like they're not going to really notice like like it is good to have good hand skills and I do think it's like an important facet, but like you can be a mediocre dentist with like an amazing connection with your patients, and I guarantee you'll be like more successful than an amazing dentist with really low personality skills with your patients. Because who's going to want to visit you more? Like when you're anxious, especially, like you're going to want to see that dentist that makes you happy and comfortable and just feel like you're connecting with a human being. So that's basically like how I see my Instagram is like I have no problem if a patient comes in and says like, "Hey, I saw your Instagram." Like it doesn't make me feel embarrassed or awkward or anything. Like I definitely share stuff that is not professional sometimes and kind of silly and childish, but like it's me. Like I'm not really ashamed of who I am. Like I've painted my nails before and like talked to patients while pointing at something with painted nails, and I mean, if they see it and they don't like it, then it's probably not a patient I really want anyways, because I'd prefer a patient that's accepting of everyone. And
Right.
um, same goes for like the stuff I have on my social media. It's like, if you don't like that, then you probably won't like me as a dentist. So you're doing me a favor by not coming to see me anymore. So that's how I approach it. Not every dentist is going to probably agree with that, but that's just my take on it. And I live in Austin too, so I'm surrounded by weird people. So maybe that's also why I connect with most of my patients. So that's also my rationale to it.
I mean, I think Austin's a great place, and it's pretty, liberal, if anything, for Texas.
Yeah.
But I really do think like the having that honest relationship or that trusting relationship with the patient makes a whole difference. And honestly, it affects my day. Like that's probably the best part of my day too, is like if I'm able to build a really good relationship with a patient, because the dentistry, it doesn't, I mean, it's rewarding, sure, but it feels better when a patient walks out of the chair and is like,
Yeah.
they're smiling, they're happy, they shake your hand or like make a joke, because then you know that, okay, they value you and they're going to come back and see you again.
Yeah.
And
And
it
I want to
makes
be the
all of it
dentist
worth it.
that it's like good to be the dentist that if you see you in public, like they're going to want to come say hi to you or like talk to you for a bit. I think that's also like a good indicator of like you as a healthcare provider. Like I want my patient to see me in public and wave at me and not feel embarrassed or like want to look away. I think
Yeah.
that's part of what makes dentistry beautiful is it's such a people profession. And for the most part, I'm surprisingly pretty introverted, but like um, having that kind of relationship with people that you treat and care for is a really beautiful thing. And it's cool to be able to have that in your profession where not many people are gifted this opportunity to be able to treat people, make them happy, give them a new smile, like change their life in some ways, and then see them in public and they can like be proud to like see you and introduce you to their friends or family and whatnot. So we can change that whole impetus of like how dentists are perceived on social or on media in general. Like I think we have the opportunity to kind of make it better.
Yeah, I mean, my goal every time I see a patient is like have that patient go home and say like, "Oh, you know what? I went to my dentist today and she was pretty cool." I want
Yeah,
that conversation to happen, and that's my goal, because if that happens, that means like I've totally changed the perspective on who we are as dentists, and what we
yeah,
can do and the care we can deliver, and brings humanity back to, you know, the the the, the art of dentistry, let's say,
yeah. I
or the
think
science of
our
dentistry.
profession, unfortunately, has been portrayed in like movies and TV shows as not in the best way. So
Mm.
it's like our responsibility to add a little bit of happiness or like positive characteristics to it if possible.
One of the ways I like connect with patients is, you know, the fact that I travel a lot. Like it's allowed me to, you know, connect with people and, talk about their cultures or, share a word or two in their language, and then they find that really interesting and then makes them happy and it makes them feel comfortable. And I know that you travel quite a bit. And recently, I mean, not too long ago, went on this trip to Kenya. Can you tell us a little bit about that trip and how that impacted you both personally and professionally?
Um, well, yeah. So that was another experience with Figs. Thank you to Figs. They basically planned a trip to Kenya where they were going to do um, a mix of multiple professions to help a community in Kenya. And not only that, but help build a hospital there and provide an infrastructure for long-term growth in that area. So instead of us just going there, helping a couple people and leaving, and then not really having like a long-lasting impact, we were able to go there, help people, educate healthcare workers and staff about things that we know of, and then also build an infrastructure around it. And so it was an amazing experience. I'm actually born in Zambia, so I was born in Southern Africa. I moved here when I was 7. So being able to go back to Africa and do this has always been a dream of mine. Like I've always wanted to be able to take my skills and take it back to Africa and provide it to them. And I think Figs kind of knew that, and that was like the originally one of the things I brought up in like my initial interview with them is my kind of background and what I've always wanted to do. And that's another beautiful thing is I think they remembered that. And so when this opportunity came up, they immediately reached out to me and gave me this opportunity to go do this. And it was a dream come true. And yeah, it was amazing. I loved every second of it. Um, like if I could go back, I would go in a split second. And yeah, I saw a lot of patients the first couple of days, and then I got to go to a school where I was able to educate nurses about periodontal disease and oral health care. And then after that, we were able to go to the ribbon cutting for the hospital that they were building. And then we actually had like about we had a couple of days that we were able to go on a safari together to kind of like end the trip as like a kind of gift to us. And that was beautiful because we got to see like incredible stuff on the safari. But yeah, it was a beautiful experience. I did some community service before in the Dominican with my dental school. So being able to provide our skills to people in need in other countries is an incredible opportunity. But I do think like, the guilt in it is sometimes like feeling like we go there for a temporary amount of time and we don't really have like a long lasting impact. So I think Figs took that into account with this and they tried to make sure that it wasn't just like a quick dip and dive out situation. And so that was really important to me. And I'm hoping to be able to do this like as often as possible, not through Figs, just in general. So if anybody out there is listening and you have opportunities, reach out to me. I'd love to join you guys on any of these. But I think even in America, I think to be able to provide this community service work is really important. I did that for the first 2 years out of dental school. And I worked at a kind of community dental clinic my second year, and it was really incredible. So yeah, if you're any dental students listening to this or pre-dental students, if you have the opportunity to work at a community clinic or do these things, I think it's a great way to kind of reinvigorate your passion for dentistry, or also like if you're feeling burnt out and like losing your love for it, it's a really good way to kind of fuel that spark back up, because you kind of realize how important your profession is and like what a big difference you can actually make with like what we're gifted with.
Yeah, I'm actually working at a FQHC right now, so
Oh,
I
nice.
definitely
Yeah. So you
understand what
definitely,
it means to serve like the underserved population and bridge that
yeah,
gap. Make care more accessible, and
yeah,
it's really sad to see what some of these patients go through and where they're coming from and how neglected they've been, and like the lack of information and education out there. And it's really simple. Like we take it for granted, but for me, one of the biggest goals of my life is to like create a charitable arm, like have something that I can actually give back to the community, even if it's locally. It doesn't have to be anything like
yeah,
international, but that's one of my goals in life. And when I was in undergrad, I also went to a mission trip to Nicaragua where I did the same thing, and it was very rewarding. And then honestly, I think anybody who has the chance, pre-dental student, dental student, even dentist, like graduate, travel as much as you can and connect with people as much as you
yeah,
can, because it really, really goes a long way.
yeah.
It really
And
goes a
you
long way.
like, you really don't forget some of these patients, like when you see them and you like, I don't know, there's some that like are burned into my memory now. And it's kind of like a good way to, I like keep that perspective of like realizing like what you're doing and how important it is, and like these kinds of people are the people that you're doing it for. Um, so yeah, I'm like super grateful to have that opportunity and to be able to do that. And yeah, I'm glad that, I mean, you definitely know what I'm talking about, and it's a beautiful thing you're doing. So congrats on that, and hopefully you're not getting too burnt out with it, because it definitely is a work intensive task.
Yeah, it is work intensive, but it's good. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've met amazing people, and it's a chapter in my life, and then you move on.
Yeah.
Um, but I before we wrap up, I just want you to maybe share a thing or two about your podcast, because I know that's something that you do. You've expanded your brand in that sense, and hanging out with Hamza, it's called, right? Did I get it wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing it up. I guess I don't want to like spend too much time plugging it on here, but yeah, I just did the same thing as Ellie did with starting this podcast. Is I was trying to figure out a new way to kind of hone my creativity and like put my skills in another realm where I could also share it with friends. And I created this podcast. I call it a passion project about passions and projects, where I talk to friends who are really passionate about something, and I just talk to them about why they're passionate about it and learn about it from them. So I've had some incredible guests that, I've had a sex therapist on there. I've had a OBGYN from Figs on it. I've had a physical therapist friend. So like I've had a friend that just started a suit company, and he's like designing custom bespoke suits for men. So like I've been lucky to be granted a lot of different friends with different unique skills and passions, and I just figured it'd be cool to have it on this wider spectrum to share with an audience who are interested in those different subjects. And it's been great, like in my profession, because I think like it's given me the opportunity to carry those passions and things I learn into mine in terms of like how they kind of hone that love for that certain skill set or whatever, and how I can use it in my profession. So yeah, it's been great. I'm really like proud of you for doing this podcast. I think it's a very challenging thing people don't realize. Like it takes a lot of your time off your hands, and also, you know, the scheduling of it and editing it and putting it together. People don't realize how tough that is. So props to you for doing this. And on top of being a dentist, it's a lot. So big props to that. But yeah, that's about it. That's about my podcast. So feel free to follow that if you guys like Ellie's podcast. It's not as good as hers, but it's like almost there.
No, it's definitely good, and he has great video content, so you should definitely check it out. And we'll share all the media outlets on the show notes later. But
Okay.
before we sign off, is there anything that you want to share, or any tidbits you want to give to the people out there listening?
Um, yeah, I think there was something I did write on your notes. I'm just going to pull it up real quick. Sorry.
No, take your time.
Uh, I feel like we talked about intentionality. You can cut this all out, right? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna
Okay.
cut it out. I might even put it before the podcast, but
Okay, cool. Um, okay, I'll talk about like what I recently, the whole like shutting down social media while I was traveling.
oh yeah.
Yeah, so I want to bring that up because I think a lot of people are going through this now, and it's been more common from what I've seen, and I got a lot of feedback when I did it. So I recently traveled to Europe for a bit, and I took some time off from dentistry, and I deleted social media for a short amount of time just because I was reaching a point where I wasn't sure if I was posting for myself or if I was posting for others. I think there's like a nice medium balance where you can post for yourself and be recognized and appreciated by others, but it's kind of like a tipping point sometimes where you can lose yourself in that. And I was starting to get to that point because for the most part, when I create things, I do it for myself selfishly, and like thankfully people can appreciate it at some point in time. So I did this more so to make sure I could go without it, and I was able to be sustainable without it, as sad as that sounds. And so I did that, and I deleted it for a while just to kind of like um, be in my own head, to be able to like enjoy a moment without having to pull my phone out and record things and
Hmm.
post things and scroll and doom scroll and all that stuff. So I think it was a really, I don't want to say it was like a like an eye-opening experience because it's like a very simple thing, but I do think it's important to bring up for a lot of people because I think we're in the age of social media now where we, even as dental healthcare providers, are so dependent on it for our marketing and for, you know, keeping up with other dentists and all this other stuff that it can definitely, it has its benefits, but it also has its risks with it. So I think it's important to address that. Like if you are starting to feel overwhelmed or burnt out, or even if you just feel like every time you get on your phone or as every time you put your phone down, you're starting to feel a little uncomfortable or not good, um, maybe take it as a sign to like take a break from social media for a bit. And I like when I did that, I definitely felt a significant kind of uh, equilibration back to normalcy. And I think it was something that I really am grateful for that I got advice from my best friend to do it. And I think for anybody listening, whether you're a pre-dental student, a dental student, or a dentist, if you're starting to feel burnt out, it might not only be your job, it might also be social media and content creation, all that stuff. So it's okay to take a break every now and then just to kind of bring yourself back to center. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I thought that was like something worth bringing up, and I hope it helps whoever's listening to this if they're ever considering it. It can be like for a day, it can be 2 days, it can be for 2 months. I don't know, whatever you think is good. I did it for like 2.5 or 3 weeks, which is like not a lot of time, but it was enough for me to recognize that I was able to like kind of get back to my center. And now I'm able to kind of like identify when I'm posting for myself or others. And when I'll probably need to download or delete it again at some point down the road, but at least now I have the self-control to be able to do that when I need to, because that's the hardest part, is knowing whether you can quit it for a bit, you know?
Right. I think that's really important because we get so wrapped up in this world of social media, and we were talking about this before offline, where there's a lot of comparison with other dentists or other professionals or just other people. It doesn't even have to be in a professional setting, but and this whole Instagram thing, it's so draining. It's so draining, and we don't
Yeah.
realize how much of a toll it takes on us because it's constantly being updated. Every like second, there's a new post, right? So like if
Yeah.
you're tapping into your phone and then you just see a new post and then you refresh and then there's a new post, it's like it it takes energy to consume each of these tidbits of like videos and pictures that you're seeing, and it
Yeah.
puts you on a roller coaster of emotions, and that really is exhausting. And I totally get it. And honestly, kudos to you for taking the time off and distancing yourself because it's not easy. Like it's an addiction
Yeah.
in
I
a
mean, you
way.
did it as well recently too, right? You took a little break from it.
I mean, I used to be public and I put my Instagram to private, and I just don't
Yeah.
check it as much anymore. And I'm I have a professional Instagram page, but I'm not posting as much as I should. Like I'm
Yeah.
not building the brand, the podcast like I should. I just don't have the energy.
Yeah.
I'm too tired. And now I realize what it means to be like a content creator. Like it's an exhausting job. It's a full-time job.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. And I
and
mean, I think it's cool too though, because I think we're also coming to an age where people are starting to recognize those brands that are more intentional behind their posts and kind of doing it um, more for themselves. And I think, like, I hate to say it, but that's becoming more of a trend, is like just being able to just be yourself and just not like get into these like whatever's popular at the time. Like,
mhm.
I hate to say it, but the trend is to not be part of the trend in a way. It's just like, like being more individualistic. And I think um, hopefully the right people recognize that. And like, you that's how I kind of garnered like whatever people do follow me. It's people that are like-minded in that sense. And I don't mind that I don't have like over 100,000 followers, because the few followers I do have are people that I align with too. And I think for me, it's definitely one of those like quality over quantity situations where, like, I joked with my friend, I was like, I kind of like the idea, like, I feel like I'm in an indie movie that, like, if you know kind of situation. It's like, if you
Mhm.
follow me, you know what you're going to expect. Like, you're going to get like corny dad jokes, and you're going to get like a certain quality of like movie reviews and all this stuff. But like, if you don't, then like no big deal. Like, you're not missing out on anything. You can go follow the big movies and watch the Hollywood blockbusters. But that's how I kind of see it. I kind of like that perspective of it. So I think in the same way you're doing the same thing, is like you're kind of garnering a group of like-minded individuals, and I think that's way more
Right.
beautiful in terms of like what you're creating. So yeah,
Yeah. We're trying.
yeah.
We're
Well,
trying.
you're doing awesome, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was
Yeah, of
fun.
course. No, this was great. Thank you so much for making the time. And before we sign off, can you share your handles so that people can find you on Instagram or your podcast?
Yeah, my handle is, I just have Instagram. It's Mogaj, Mogaj. If you follow Ellie, you'll see me on there at some point commenting on her stuff. And my podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any podcast available. It's called Hanging Out with Hamza, and it's me and random guests on there that are close friends with people I love. And it's edited by one of my best friends named Zai. He's incredible. Um, and I want to give him a shout out for always helping me with them. Um, and yeah, thanks again for having me, Ali. This was awesome, and this podcast is beautiful, and you're doing great with it.